Yeah, let's see what they've got in the circulars.
Tony Caravan.
You've been seconded to a highly sophisticated form of propaganda.
It's just what you need, and not what you don't.
Oh, hello there. I was just reading the paper. Trying to see what's in the old Memorial Day weekend special at Aldi, who's not a sponsor actually. $2.29 mozzarella cheese, all this stuff, ice cream waffle cones $1.29, and you can get much or cherry much ice cream for $1.79. That sounds good. They have one of those delivery services now that goes there. It's pretty quick. In my neck of the woods, we have something called that Giant Eagle. I used to live in LA. It was Giant. Or Ralph's. Ralph's the Giant. Then in other parts of the country, it's Albertsons. And people are thinking, of course, I can't go here. I can't go here because my leg is still messed up. And I think we're going to talk a little bit about this briefly today, even though much of that has been discredited. So, with that said, I guess it's time to say
Good morning.
That's a shocker to you. Oh, got the old P hat on. And I almost put on the bandana, but, you know, that's getting too old, don't you think?
You're listening to Tony Caravan Live.
You betcha. I didn't even pour my sodas yet. So, how are you all doing today? I know you can't respond to me except mentally because we don't have any chat. Doesn't show up half the time, and I don't know. I haven't checked in to see how the experiment went over at locals.com. Excuse me. With their thing for live broadcasting, but I'm keeping me fingers crossed for that. Anyway, cheers with the morning show mug. A little bit of caffeine and what is it? Carbonation. One of my preserved pieces of tooth. These rocks that came out of my mouth. Look at the size of those things. I've got 3 of them. All my fillings are falling out. And I don't know what to do about it. Right? What's a person to do when you're living in this world? This crazy world we live in today. Me. Maybe if I do that, I won't have a problem. It's 5:25 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, May 26th in the calendar year 2021. For those of you finding this in some kind of buried archive after the cataclysm, centuries after the cataclysm, perhaps millennia, if it will have survived. In the year 2525. Remember that song? If man is still alive, if woman can survive. Hey, that's not sexist.
Hey, it's me. How you doing, man?
I'm doing better than yesterday, I think, even though. Yesterday was a good show, though. Highly recommend it. It was much more serious. And we really got into the topic. And you know, for those who were able to stomach a long show, and some interruptions, including the cat interruption. I think my 36,000-year-old story about how those two cataclysms back tried to deflect the solar outburst failed, and then left their accumulated knowledge along with warnings for us to give us a head start so that we could complete the deflector. That all of that was in vain because of these these narcissistic sociopaths, literally psychopaths, that are ruling the world right now, literally ruling the world. And that's kind of what today's show is going to be about. First, for those of you who for some reason like to follow the weather, I'm going to give you an early look at the weekend weather. And anyway, today it's 64 degrees currently outside the studio. And it's probably going to get up into the 80s today. It'd be mostly sunny and then thunderstorms later on tonight, getting down to about 61 degrees. Tomorrow, it's looking about maybe a 20% chance of rain. However, probably won't happen, but the temperature is going to start dipping down into the 70s. It's going to be 73, overnight 54. And Friday, 100% chance of rain, 63 degrees. That's not bad for my garden or the tomatoes. You know, tomatoes can deal with that. But the scary part is Friday night, so, because we're talking weekend weather. It's going to be 46 overnight Friday night. And Saturday is looking like, if I can see the whole thing here for some reason. There we go. Let's not try that one more time. Okay. Cut. Sorry. Now, there we go. Oh, wait a second. Now it's pulled up some kind of crazy thing. I apologize for this. Just pulled up another browser, and I hope it hasn't disrupted the live broadcast. This computer is driving me batty. I've got the spinning wheel. And let's see if we're still broadcasting. I don't even know if we are. Okay, that's quit. Let's go back now. We're going back to weekend weather. Yeah, I know. It's getting crazy and idiot, but I can see the whole weekend now. I can see it. Friday, 100% chance of rain, 63 in the daytime, 46 in the overnight. Saturday, 50% chance of rain, 54 degrees for the high during the day, 45 overnight. Not nice. I've seen it as low as 40 on from NOAA. It's a NOAA radio back there. And Sunday, partly sunny, partly cloudy. I don't know. 63 degrees and 45 overnight again. So 3 nights in a row, it's going to be in the mid 40s. Let's hope it's only mid 40s, because my garden is like blooming. My tomato plants already have flowers on them, and I've got zucchini and stuff looking really nice. So, I mean, that's not frost warning, but it's not good. Anyway, that's the weekend weather. So it's going to be nice for a couple of days, but this weekend's not looking too pretty. So that's the name of that tune. Anyway, so I'm back. Heart's still ticking.
Okay.
And she does that no matter what, for some reason. So let's get into it. Let's first of all take a look at our meme or title card. And it has 2 images, split screen, which I wish this YouTube studio folks would be able to do on their own. Just split screen broadcast so that anything on, say, the left or the right side would just be either you select a file or you could select desktop. That would even be easier. And that way, anything you pull up on your desktop, then you wouldn't have to keep selecting files to change it. That would be the easiest way to do it. They could do it, because right now I'm showing 2 cameras. I know they have multiple camera capability. But anyway, on the left side of that meme, you see a blindfolded gentleman with a beard walking off a cliff. And on the right side, well, that's scary. That's a galaxy. Is that a galaxy? No, it's not a galaxy. That's a nova. And it looks like what do they call that thing? I forget what they even call that thing. Well, anyway, that's what our sun is. Our sun might be doing that thing sometime in the next 20 years. That's actually scratched out. I'm half awake galaxy. It's a nebula. A nebula? Yeah, nebula. Now you're saying all that talk that I gave, this guy doesn't even know the difference between a galaxy, a nebula, or a star. Anyway, what I'm really trying to say in my half awake stupor that I'm in, though I am completely sober, though some of you probably are thinking,
did you accidentally inject yourself with some kind of psychotropic agent?
Is that's kind of like what we might see in our sky, and I don't know, think about it. And for some, you notice the perfectly round face today as opposed to like yesterday. If you compare my face, it's weird. It's the hat. It has something to do with the hat. I have no idea. And why half the things are showing back there and the other half things aren't. It's just weird. It's weird. I don't care. All right. Let's go to the title card down below. In case you're watching this on a smart TV and you don't have the option of seeing these kinds of things, the title, of course, is Most Are Oblivious, and that refers to the title card. And the description is, we've gone beyond the point of mass insanity and hysteria into uncharted territory. Those who are spearheading this madness are beyond criminal. They're downright evil. And I could even go as far as to say they're evil, right? And of course, I'm talking about the international criminal or organized crime syndicate. Those several thousand people, maybe as many as 8,000 people with all their various minions who are ruling over the 8 billion people on the planet Earth and taking us down this path, having most people walk off a cliff with a blindfold. While that exploding star on the other side is looming in the background. And back there, Maggie, I am very sorry. She has been sending me notifications. Hi, do you want to talk? And I've been ignoring them. I don't mean to. I just don't have anything to say. Is it possible that, and my leg is still ridiculously, looks ridiculous. The size of a bruise the size of a dinner plate. I'm going to read a little passage from, well, first of all, again, this is a picture. If I could do this right. See that? Yeah, that's pretty decent shot there. Well, lit enough. A little bit glare, but anyway. That's Zachariah Sitchin. Okay. And Sitchin is the guy who was, I mentioned him briefly yesterday. He was the one who kind of the whole Planet X movement that was going on in the late 90s. Like that was a part of a Yahoo group, I think, that was like Planet X people and stuff. But he was the one who was translating the Sumerian texts. And, many academics have later gone on to point out flaws, other translators, that he took, creative liberties in his translations for the sake of making his books interesting. However, if you just want to know about Sitchin, right? It's one of my books from another book from this is turned into a book review show. If you just want to know about Sitchin and know what he wants, this was I believe this might have been his last book before he died. This is copyrighted 2002. But what's interesting is he has an introduction in here. And I see I have a bookmark in here, which I don't know, 2 bookmarks. But there's an introduction there. You can see it kind of sideways, where he kind of reviews his whole theory of, of these people that came from, the 12th planet or whatever. So I'm just going to give you the first, just a couple sentences from the introduction, and then something else just to give you an idea. Excuse me. Some 445,000 years ago, astronauts from another planet came to Earth in search of gold. That's the Sitchin theory, okay? Splashing down in one of Earth's seas, they waded ashore and established Eridu, home of the faraway. Or I guess far away. I don't know. In time, the initial settlement expanded to a full-fledged mission Earth with a mission control center, a spaceport, mining operations, and even a way station on Mars. Short of manpower, the astronauts employed genetic engineering to fashion primitive workers, Homo sapiens. The deluge that catastrophically swept over the Earth required a fresh start. The astronauts became gods, granting mankind civilization, teaching it to worship. It's really, I'm reading that verbatim. That's kind of a poorly written paragraph. Then about 4,000 years ago, all that had been achieved unraveled in a nuclear calamity brought about by the visitors to Earth in the course of their own rivalries and wars. Anyway, that's where people have problems. His whole idea was that they came here to mine gold because they needed their atmosphere was falling and was failing, and they needed the gold to deflect the sun. Kind of like Bill Gates's idea of putting particulate matter up in our atmosphere. But he's missing the whole boat. Our planet's not heating in that regard. It's kind of it's cooling in many ways. Though anything, as our magnetic field weakens, we may be seeing some heating and some craziness happening in the coming years. But I wanted to read a little bit of passage here towards the end of the book, because this is supposedly Enki, one of 2 brothers, I believe, that were ruling the planet. One was on the side of the humans that they genetically engineered, and another one was for destroying us, obliterating us completely. Anyway, the earth shook and crumbled. The heavens after the brilliance were darkened. With burnt and crushed stones, the plain of the chariots covered. This is remember, this is it's like a poem almost, the way it's written. Of all the forests that the plain had surrounded, only tree stems were left standing. It is done, Ninurtu, or Nunuta, from the sky ship, his black divine bird, word shouted. The control that Marduk and Nabu so coveted of it are forever deprived. I'm sorry, it sounds like I can't read. This is very hard to read. Then to emulate Ninurtu Nergal desired to be Era, the annihilator of his heart, him urged. So I guess this is just translated straight, and that's why it's not making sense in English. Following the king's highway to the verdant valley of the 5 cities he flew. And I'm looking with fire and brimstones, were they upheavaled, all that lived there to vapor was turned. By awesome weapons were mountains toppled, where the sea waters were barred and bolt broke open. Down into the valley the sea's waters poured, by the waters was the valley flooded. When upon the city's ashes the waters poured, steam to the heavens was rising. It's done. So you see towards the end it started, you kind of got into the flow of his iambic pentameter or whatever the heck it was. Anyway, this book not only in the intro kind of gives you the Sitchin like thesis, but when you read this book of Enki, these alleged translations, you get an idea. But if you notice that, I watched Doug Vogt's latest video, which I mentioned yesterday, where he gets into like, reviews, where he brought us and like how people could survive. Like his main mission right now is finding engineers and people to build the doors for the structures where people can survive this event. That's where his head's at. But he also got into the idea of what's really going to happen again. He reviewed that. And reading this last passage, however you want to look at Sitchin, from his extraterrestrial perspective, forget that. Even if you just take this as if these Sumerian tablets were just describing, a cataclysm, it falls in line with this catastrophe, right? Particularly towards the end there. And I just want to get to that. I could do that one more time. Excuse me. With fire and brimstones were they upheavaled, all that lived there to vapor were turned. By the awesome weapons were mountains toppled, where the sea waters were barred and the bolt broke open. Down into the valley the sea's waters poured, by the waters was the valley flooded. When upon the city's ashes the waters poured, steam to the heavens was rising. And Vogt gets into this idea of the oceans turning to steam. And so when that happens, you get this shockwave and this unbelievable shockwave. And, the waters poured, fire and brimstone, blah, blah, blah. So, and remember, however you want to look at the way he was translating these, most of his stuff was, as far as we know, it was taken from these tablets. It's just that he took some creative liberties to create this tale, But like I'm saying, this just is another piece, if you want to say in the stories of the before people, the myth, if you want to call it that, but that just corresponds with this idea, this flood, fire and brimstone, right? The dark clouds, right? The steam, this is it. Watch Doug Vogt's latest video, Die-Hold Foundation, on YouTube. Doug's an interesting character. He writes these things, and sometimes when he's rereading them, he misses his own words or mispronounces some stuff. I'm not sure I understand that part of it. But he's at the forefront of this, and he's a very intelligent guy, and he's written a lot of books. And, as far as I'm concerned, he's the father of this of this catastrophe warning, and he's the guy who's doing the most serious work into it. And he does have this foundation, and I guess there are some people working with him, and he's actually trying to do something about it. So, my advice is watch his videos and support the Diehold Foundation. All right. It's no sponsor. I don't know the guy personally or anything like that, but he's seems like a good man, and he's trying to do his best to get the word out on this thing. He also doesn't like when we call it a micro nova. So it's a full-blown nova. The sun's going nova. But it will survive. Suns go nova and they survive. I guess that's the takeaway from it. That's another thing to think about. But beyond all that, and this is not going to be a repeat of yesterday's show, but I think I did give, I also talked about bright insight. And I want to make sure I was thinking of, before I got up today, I was laying in bed and I was thinking, let's see here. Bright Insight Jimmy. Okay. All right. So it's Bright Insight YouTube channel. I just wanted to make sure I had that right yesterday. And if I didn't say it, if I said it differently, check out Bright Insight, his latest video. He talks about the Eye of Africa and Atlantis and how that coincides with this catastrophe. And of course, yesterday I was reading from Lana, I guess Lana, like Lana Turner, maybe that's how she would pronounce her name. Lana Cantrell's book, The Greatest Story Never Told. And she had the 12,000 year thing in there, in just one passage I read. And of course, we talked about Ben Davidson and Randall Carlson and Graham Hancock and, back to Velikovsky and, the Electric Universe folks. Vote doesn't like the Electric Universe guys, but, I don't know. But they seem to have an argument on something. But, we all need to work together on this because right now, like I said yesterday, we're staring down the barrel of, of an exploding star that's going to happen in most people who are listening to this in their lifetime. And while Vote is kind of assigning a date to it based on his translations and biblical text, from what we're seeing happening right now, the changes in the Earth's magnetic fields, the activity in the sun, things that are occurring on the other planets in the solar system and around the galaxy, that, we may not have as much time as we think. And meanwhile, and so that said, and which I never liked that expression, but that said, meanwhile, if you scan through like YouTube title cards, like I said, I don't watch TV, people are talking about the most idiotic things in the world as if they're important. We're talking about the near extinction or possible extinction of mankind. Hey, remember, just because we're here today and we made it through the last time, all right, that doesn't mean that this may be an extinction like fini, the grand finale of humanity. Because as in my story that I told yesterday about the people of 36,000 years ago, who probably tried to do something with this, maybe left the Sphinx as a warning, right? And whatever they buried in those boxes that has been stolen, pilfered by these, Brussels trash, right? This organized crime syndicate that's ruling the world, the corporatocracy that destroyed the United States, the former United States. They gave the last generation a chance, and after 36,000 years, after that cataclysm, it seems to me that they gave the next generation, so to speak, of humans, generation is really the wrong word, but civilization, enough information that they were able to build Atlantis. Okay. But then whatever went wrong for some reason, either Atlantis civilization, lost it or got too self-absorbed. And then they were destroyed 12,000 years ago by this cataclysm. But they survived, but there were survivors. And that's why we're here now. But we seem to be like that blindfolded guy. Look at my title card, when you go or open up another browser and re-look at my title card. We seem to be like that blindfolded guy with the beard walking off a cliff while that, star is exploding. Because we're not heating it. Nobody's talking about this. When I say, all the players, basically. And, the funny thing is, who had, Graham Hancock's, first book came out, in, let's see, Fingerprints of the Gods. So Fingerprints of the Gods, I believe that was his first book. I know he's a new book out now. Publication date says September 2012. What was his first? I gotta look. Let's go to the author. Follow the author. I gotta find out. I don't want to misrepresent the guy. I like the guy. Magicians of the Gods. I think that was his first book. He's got a lot of books out. All these things have been bestsellers. All right. I am the author of Magicians of the Gods, published on 10 September 2015, and the major international bestseller, The Sign and the Seal, Fingerprints of the Gods, Heaven's Mare, Underworld, and Supernatural. Okay. That's what Graham Hancock says on his page. So he, he's kind of one of the more visible and serious writers who have been talking about humans have amnesia. I think that's what he calls. We're a civilization with amnesia. That, like, I've heard him say that in many interviews and talks. And some people have stolen that phrase from him, but that's a Hancock phrase. He was the guy. And then there were some of those guys that were on that History Channel show, Ancient Aliens, the guy with the hair, But there were a few people on there that, because they had a lot of different guests on there. And some of them were just other guys hawking their books and pushing this ancient alien theory. It's the same with this, and it's, but there were some interesting characters on there, but I'm not going to get into naming, every person and giving my opinion on whether who was genuine, authentic, or who was just trying to sell a book. But the idea is that doesn't really matter, because what matters most is that you could kind of just make a list on a sheet of paper of the people who are talking about this stuff. The show Coast to Coast, was pretty popular show, and it's been on for many years. And you can go back to Art Bell, who began it all. Those great, beautiful, glorious internet days. Art Bell broadcasting from his basement in good old real audio. That's like when I was doing my show and others were. But Art Bell, we owe, rest in peace. he was popular. And that was the foundation of Coast to Coast ultimately. And so it's not as if people aren't aware or hearing these tales. Oh, damn it. Forget it. Well, if you end up getting sick in my stomach, I dropped an ice cube in an area where who knows if a cat got to or whatever. I apologize. I'm running low on soft drinks. All right. I know it's hard to deal with me. I understand that. It's ridiculous.
It's an excursion into the odd and into the very, very different.
But you have to understand.
I am your main connection to the switchboard of souls. I'm the magic man.
Here's what's happening.
Here's what's happening. So you get what I'm trying to say. And this is the direction I'm trying to take this program for however long it lasts, wherever it may be. Just keep in the back of your mind TonyCaravanLive.com, because if this vanishes from YouTube, TonyCaravanLive.com will tell you where it is. And I'm on, and the people over at locals.com, and I have TonyCaravanLive.locals.com community page. So I'm there. Okay. I'm also at rockflux.com. And like I say, and I play it sometimes, my YouTube channel for now, assuming this thing stays live, is called Rockflux. Like as in the earth being this rock in a state of flux.
Rock Flux Live.
Come along, children. Now we're going to have a little music.
Well, let's hear it.
Insert your station call letters here.
Here we
Go.
I gotta go.
You're clear to go. Hey, don't think this sounds really cool. Let's roll. Go.
And that predominant voice in that little liner thing there is Tattoo, who also has a locals channel and is on YouTube. So the idea is, just to get into this further and away from the factual stuff and the story I told yesterday, and giving you the idea that, check out all these people, see, because it's like I said, it's not, you don't just take my word for it or or like Hancock's word for it or Carlson's word for it or whoever's. Votes, Davidson, you have to look at it all in, like I say, in the aggregate, and see what similarities, what is everyone saying that kind of lines up, together. And that's what we need to focus on. And we know for sure, and I mentioned it yesterday, but will be mentioned today and in the future, and that is the 12,000 years. It just keeps recurring. Everywhere you look, it's there. I mean, in that obscure book I brought out yesterday by Lana Cantrell, right? It's out of print. Apparently, collector's item were $550. I wouldn't sell mine, though. But it was in there. I mean, it's everywhere, So you find the similarities, or not even similarities, you find the things that correspond and that are tangible, things that geologists, archaeologists, right? Astrophysicists can confirm. We actually have, this is one of those unique situations where something that a lot of people are completely unaware of and would consider fringe, right? Where we actually have physical evidence, and a lot of it. And, and the anecdotal evidence and circumstantial evidence is very strong as well. So something's afoot, that's for sure. And no matter where your head's at, you got to start paying attention to this weakening magnetic field, these migrating poles, magnetic poles on our planet, the activity of the sun, and increased volcanism, the correlation between solar activity and earthquakes and things of that nature. So, these things are becoming more and more clear to serious scientists, put it that way. But 99.9999% of the people on this planet are oblivious, like I said in my title, to this. And meanwhile, people are blindfolded walking off a cliff, with all sidetracked by this corporatocracy that's running the former United States and this organized crime syndicate that's pulling the strings of running the whole world. Group of couple thousand people who basically have declared themselves rulers of the planet, which, quite frankly, isn't too far-fetched from Sitchin's story about these extraterrestrials running the planet. Which I said a few shows ago, and I'm telling you, because you don't know what you don't know, like the shirt, which I wish people would just buy the freaking shirt. Everything is wrong, but you don't know what you don't know. Go to TonyCaravanLive.com, right? Open a separate window and click on the shirt and get yourself a shirt. It's available in all sizes. You don't want a shirt, get a hoodie. You don't want a hoodie, get a bag to go shopping with. You can get it on anything. It's available in like sexy female tops too. So get it for your girlfriend, or if you're a sexy lady, get one for yourself, mama. So,
Okay.
But that's what it's really all about. I didn't make that shirt for no reason. And this is how you see, how do you communicate in a world gone mad? Like, look at this edit. I'm going to look at I call it, it's the edit thing. We've gone beyond the point of mass insanity and hysteria into uncharted territory. Those who are spearheading this madness are beyond criminal, they're downright evil. All right. Now, anyone who denies that there isn't mass insanity and hysteria going on all over mainly Western civilization. That's the funny part about it. It's worse here than anywhere else. And so, how do you deal with it when you have a media? And I mean all media too, by the way. Because this idea, this ideology, red state, blue state, that's why I quit politics a long time ago. Well, a long time ago now. Well, we're getting close to June. So yeah, like 8 months ago, I quit politics when I saw that it had become, it was an exercise in futility. All right. And people just lost their minds. And now you get one side save America and another side figuring out how they could fuck America the most, but the idea is that both are wrong, because there's nothing to save, right? And it's already fucked up. And I apologize for fornication under the consent of the king. All right. That's what I really meant to say. So screw politics. Screw that. That's meaningless. Meaningless. And these people are such narcissists. They take themselves so seriously. Right? It's the same with these issues, these so-called social issues. Yeah, and there's people hearing me say that, going, oh, good God, it's very important. You don't understand. People are getting, people have always been getting, all right, whatever you're trying to say. You know, take that out of your mouth and talk straight. Yeah, I'm in one of those moods today. Because, and if you don't like it,
Go ahead and shoot. You'll be doing me a favor.
the idea is that, look, petty issues. Sticks and stones will break my bones, but names will never hurt me. And as far as people attacking people and other things like that, look, there are 19,000 plus homicides in the U.S. alone every frickin' year. All right? And yes, there are psychopaths out there and sociopaths. And there are people that are being fed by the media. Don't you understand? The media. And that's driving them. I tried to explain that, I think, maybe yesterday or previously. To understand, this isn't cult of personality, politics is pop culture. This is the media, which is this propaganda wing of this for-profit corporatocracy that's running this former United States of America, and that their strings are being pulled because they're marionettes of this organized crime syndicate that's running the world. I had to do that, you know. That always gives me a good laugh. It should give you a good laugh. And laugh, man. A guy just belched on a freaking show. You don't see that on CNN or Fox. I'm tired of trying to hold it back. You try drinking a couple of these carbonated beverages first thing in the morning. I didn't even have my cereal today. I forgot. But yeah. Life is pretty funny, man. It's
the only station that matters.
This is real. This is real live TV. But no, I mean, come on. This is petty disagreements on political matters or getting involved in individual things that the media fixates on and drives people who are mentally unstable to act out. And then suddenly it becomes this big story and everyone's saying, oh, there's this thing. Everybody's going after Asians. Everybody's going after, this, that, the other. Cops. Everybody's going after. And it's like, yeah, but the media is promoting it. You don't know. That's what I'm saying about the shirt and what I was trying to get this point across. You think I'm trying to sell something to you. I'm not trying to sell something to you. I'm trying to give you a way for less than $20 that you can spread the word. And if more people do it. If you have a shirt that says you don't know what you don't know, is a very thought-provoking thing. And people are going to look at what? What you don't know what you don't know. And people are going to realize that. And the idea, and if someone asks you, then you tell them. You say you only know what you hear on the media, and the media are the people that are destroying civilization, or have destroyed, and are just making it worse. When people say, "Oh, there's been attacks on a certain group of people," right? And it changes. It changes from month to month, year to year, right? Yeah, decides they figure, well, let's end this one. Let's get something to do. People are getting bored with this. The media, they have their little meetings in their little boardroom center, editorial meetings, and they sit around and they say, okay, so what are we going to do now, right? What's next? Well, let's cover this story about this. Oh, somewhere in Poughkeepsie, somebody did something to somebody, and they were of this nationality or this thing. Okay, good. Let's cover that. And let's look and see if anything like that happened anywhere else. And let's kind of like in film business, we used to call it when you were editing a film, it's called juxtaposition. You juxtapose two things next to each other. All right. So that people see them together and then they make, a correlation as if this is a thing. So let's see if we can juxtapose that with this and tie that into that. And so the whole thing could support this narrative that we've already got people losing their minds over, right? Mass hysteria and and insanity, right? And that's what the media does. Because remember, they're just trying to sell cars and pharmaceuticals, political ads, right? And then lawyers' ads about things that the FDA approved that kill people, right? That's media. That's what the media does. That and some bright and shiny objects thrown in, right? For silly humans, right? That just, suckers for that. Hey, got a credit card. Let's see. What can I spend it on? I mean, that's basically it. So in the meantime, we're all dead men walking, right? Our star's going to nova. We're dead men walking. And people are worried about catching a cold or, listening to some binge watching media and getting all hype, who's hyping up some, like as if people are against a particular person. Look, whenever you see things going on in the Middle East, that's right out of the military industrial complex's playbook. Okay. So this whole thing that's happening with Israel and Hamas or, and Palestinians, that kind of thing. When was the last time we saw that? Right? When the military industrial complex, wanted to make some money. They want to stir that pot. They don't care about the Jewish people and they don't care about the Palestinian people. They just care about selling weapons. All right? Selling weapons. See, that scared somebody away. Can't talk about that. And so it doesn't matter what your nationality is, what your country is. You are basically a pawn. That's all you are. You're just a pawn to the military industrial complex. All right. Is it time? I mean, do I have to, yeah.
This evening, in the councils of government, we must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military industrial complex. The potential for the disastrous rise of misplaced power exists and will persist.
There's people that still don't, still think that's like conspiracy theory, military industrial complex. They still don't understand that was Eisenhower, president of the United States, a general, all right, warning about the military industrial complex in the 60s, early 60s, okay, 60 years ago, basically. And people still and that still doesn't sink into people's, thick skulls. So yeah, when you see this, of course, the military industrial complex, they're pulling out of Afghanistan. So we've got to stir the pot in the Middle East. They don't care about Jews or, Arabs. They don't care about any of that stuff. They just want to sell weapons. They want war over there. And then you've got, these, crazy, look at fuzz I just saw inside my cup. Probably was from that ice cube that fell on the ground. I'm going to do bad things to you. Do you? At some point, I may have to leave to get some more caffeine. One down. Today's hump day. I hurt my leg. I've fallen down and I can't get up. Well, I was able to get up, but the problem is the beer bar where I could buy my 12-pack so I could sit around on hump day and listen to some cool tunes today, right? And relax. I haven't had a beer in a couple of weeks, right? But I don't want to walk up there because I'm afraid I'd mess up this leg. Boy, is it annoying. And, that's one of the downfalls about being a confirmed bachelor living with a cat, And also, I no longer drive, so I don't have a license. So I technically don't have ID. I was trying to buy cigars I mentioned this once on a show. I was trying to buy cigars, I don't know, a month ago, someplace in Walmart or something. And they carded me. And it's like, look at me. It's like, yeah, I think it's pretty easy to tell, I'm way, 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 way past the age of 21. And they said, no, we can't, you have to have ID. We can't sell cigars or smoking materials to anyone. You have to have ID. And what's the funniest thing about that in a store? And this is just a quick aside, but it ties in everything else that's going on right now. Walmart is one of the most, data collection. In fact, they were one of the first major chains to really get into this profiling its customers, right? I mean, microphones, listening to people talk in the aisles and things like that to decide, what they're to improve. They're actually to improve their products. To get people to buy more products. So if people were in the aisle saying, man, this is a bad selection, I don't like these things, I wish they had this, they were like recording all that stuff. And that's how that was one of the factors they would have in how they design their stores. So they've got cameras on you. You're going to check out with a credit card or a debit card. They know exactly who you are and how old you are because you're in their database. When I go to Walmart, all right, I get an email that shows what I bought. Or you could go on their website and they're like saying you need ID to buy a cigar. So anyway, to make a long story short, I can't even call a beer distributorship up and say, hey, could you send me a case of beer? Because they're going to want ID and I don't have ID. And it's like, for some reason, it doesn't matter if you look old, like that's not a factor. If you got gray hair, gray sideburns or, whatever, mutton chops. I don't know I don't know what I'm doing with this beard here. That's not enough, Got to have ID because that's a society we live in. And actually, that I threw away that one newspaper I was holding up. I don't know if it's even in that. Probably isn't. It's not worth it. I got an email from them, and it said, I walked to the store yesterday. That's why I don't want to walk up there because my leg's still hurting from walking the mile round trip or whatever it was. But I received an email from this grocery store that said, if you took the thing, their staff and you don't have to wear that. And sure enough, I went in yesterday and I noticed their staff were restocking the shelves and they weren't wearing any of the old eyes without a face. But I'm not getting it. So I had my bandana on. Just a little aside, quick little aside. So yeah, people are entirely oblivious to this, you know, to all these earth changes. In fact, that was, I think, the name of the Yahoo group that I was a part of back in like 1999, 1998, 1999. It was Earth Changes. And, you know, that was heavily weighted towards, you know, Planet X type of people. And I think some of the people who ended up being actually on Gaia TV and even History Channel's Ancient Aliens. I've seen a couple names that I think they were part of that like discussion group that we used to have, you know, and they've ended up, you know, of course I've got 9 books out too, but I mean, these guys got books and probably ended up making $1 million. Nobody's buying my book. Codex, get it. Get some. So what do we do? You know? Well, there's 2 ways of looking at this. It's if you watch Vote's video, which I recommend you do, from his perspective, and even if you watch Suspicious Observers, Ben Davidson's stuff, it's pretty obvious that there's really nothing we can do to save ourselves from, you know, such a cataclysm. I mean, this is a catastrophic event on such a scale that's just incomprehensible. Because not only is the earth scoured over by the oceans, right, coming over the continent, you know, flooding over the continents, the oceans steaming, the atmosphere. I mean, just imagine every disaster film or every possible disaster there is, and times it by about 1,000, and imagine them all happening simultaneously and lasting for like a couple of months straight. And then following that, an ice age, you know, being buried under a mile of ice, which was what the Younger Dryas period was, you know, and that's the archaeological evidence that we have. Right. And so, you know, like the CIA, DARPA has this thing going on. And if you watch the Doug Votes Diehold Foundation video, you know, he's talking about, he mentions that DARPA thing. But, you know, the whole idea is, why is DARPA having a contest, you know, for people to create some kind of door or robot? I think it was, a robot that could find this shelter, underground shelter. You know, why would you? I mean, I guess it was weird. Just really weird. Why the CIA basically still, you know, classifying, redacting stuff that deals with this topic. You know, that's the tell right there. And there's others. And maybe all this diversionary stuff that people are taking serious, and, you know, this mass hysteria that's going on in Western civilization is just basically diversion, right? Misdirection, you know, to keep people away from this. But see, I don't understand that. You know, in other words, so they don't want people to know that this is a distinct possibility that we've got at the best 25 years left, right? They don't want people to know that because why? Because they're hoping that over the next 25 years that there would be mass hysteria and mass panic, and the stock market would crash and all this kind of stuff, and that they couldn't live out their lives or get into their shelters finished or whatever it is. So they're going to wait till the last minute or not at all. And then, someday you're just going to look up at the sky and see that something that looks like that eye thing on my title card. And then it's curtains. And meanwhile, these guys are going to be in their, continuity of government and these underground facilities that people have been hearing these booms all over that they've been putting to keep themselves in. And I guess so that they could live in there for years. And then they want to have these robots that will be able to ultimately dig them out when it's safe to come out. But, the whole idea is that, so it's going to be an underground civilization is what's really going to happen. But see, the thing about that is too, and even I've noticed about, this is one of my criticisms of Doug Vogt's thing, is that there's going to be so much seismic activity, and magma, because you're talking about, just a planet in a state of flux beyond anything. It's like I said, that's my whole idea, the name Rock Flux that I use for this YouTube channel. And I have a rockflux.com page, but TonyCaravanLive.com is my main page. But that if you're underground, I don't know how safe you would really be. I think that it's happened chance, whatever you want to call it, to survive this thing. It's just a matter of, being in the right place at the right time that people survived the last time. Hiding in a certain cave and that was on the, the right side of, or high enough up. I mean, because, when you look at like Lake Titicaca and stuff like that, these high up in like the Andes or wherever, that looked like they were even washed over, places that are, some, it's like in that movie, The Day After Tomorrow or something. Was it that one or whatever? The one where they actually tried to build these arcs or something like that. And, and the waves were as high as the Himalayas. But see, the arcs won't work because the oceans are going to be flowing over the continents. So any kind of boat would be submerged. I was thinking that the idea would be the chance, even though the water, the oceans are going to like be totally, like someone in a swimming pool or a small pool, splashing the water back and forth, that some kind of submarine or something in like the Mariana Trench, some of the deepest parts of the oceans, though they may be subject to, seismic activity and volcanism as well. But that maybe you'd be safer in a submarine, nuclear-powered submarine that you could survive in for 6 months, 3 to 6 months, and then emerge when things settle down. That might be the survivors. But that's hard to say because, that could, that submarine could be sloshed around and bashed off this, just like a child's toy in a bathtub, you know. So, you know, really this whole thing that we're talking about, and it, you know, really think about it, you know, that I'm actually talking about something like this, and that this is and serious people are talking about this, not nearly enough. But the government is clearly aware of it. Okay? Clearly, the government is clearly aware of it. People within government agencies are clearly aware of it. Now, whether or not the higher ups, the political appointees and the political, you know, those elected to political office are aware of this is doubtful. It's the same as, like I said, how compartmentalized, you know, our government alphabet agencies and continuity of government people really are, including military. I mean, that's how they were able to keep the UFO thing under wraps for 70 some years. You know, people just don't understand how compartmentalized things are. And how disinformation, you know, can be used and propaganda to throw people, you know, for used as misdirection, or like I say, like glamour, like in, you know, one of those the movie The Craft, witchcraft type of ideas. But it's just basically just behavioral science, you know, techniques. So we know because people who've tried to get Freedom of Information Act, FOIA documents, and public things that DARPA has done, that we know they're aware of this stuff. You know, there are people aware of this stuff. These structures are being built. There have been whistleblowers, right? And however misguided these people are in trying to do what they're doing, you know, all that missing money, those trillions and trillions of dollars that you can go back to Rumsfeld when he was like Secretary of Defense and said, you know, we can't account for so many trillions of dollars. Well, where do you think it was going for? You know, I mean, yeah, millions of dollars are being stole all the time, you know, and pilfered from government projects. Now billions of dollars are probably being pilfered and stolen, misdirected, and put into black projects. All right. But not trillions and trillions of dollars. You know, that's a little bit over the top. So they've sunk trillions of dollars into this, into trying to survive. And they've been doing this for decades now. See, they've known about this since like the 60s. You know, that's the whole idea. That was one of the reasons for the original Apollo mission, right? See, the Apollo mission, you know, there's the public idea of the Apollo mission was that it was this unifying thing that we were, you know, Russia had already beat us into space, right, with Sputnik. And so that we were going to land a man on the moon so that we were going to win the space race. But we already lost it because, you know, the Russians already, you know, were the first ones in space. And so the true reason for the space, there were two other main reasons for the Apollo program, Apollo being the sun god, was that A, it was to confirm that the sun novaed, which they confirmed that. And B, as I mentioned before, it was an excuse for us to test our ICBMs, right, Intercontinental Ballistic Missile Program. And so we were testing these rockets, and it was the front was that we were testing them for the space program. But the reality was it was a front for us to be testing, you know, missile programs. It's always the military industrial complex. But at the same time, the Apollo program was also about confirmation, and they received confirmation. And then the Mars rovers have also confirmed that it happened because they found the same particles on Mars. And then, of course, on the Earth, we knew all along. We were just trying to confirm if we found the same things occurred on the moon and Mars, then clearly the sun nova. And that was the confirmation. Third one's a charm. So, there's nothing we can do about this. And it's very unlikely. It's like whoever survives this thing, it's just going to be a chance. Anyone in the northern hemisphere, will be buried under ice, because after the event, is the ice age. That's how our ice ages happen. And and what a way to go during the event. So these bastards, they don't want us to know that we only have 25 years at best. And like I'm saying, hell, man, this thing could happen anytime. You can't be that precise. It's a 12,000 year cycle, and we're right around the time, and stuff's happening already. And there are variables out there, with a planet, just going through space at unimaginable speeds, being dragged by our star. There are variables there that affect the timing of this event. So yeah, who knows? I don't think you can pinpoint it down to a time like some people are trying to say. Oh yeah, it's going to happen on 25 years from now. I think it could happen tomorrow. I think it happened next year. I think it could happen in 5 years, or it could be 20 some years. But it's a cyclical thing, and there is a certain clockwork to our solar system and the universe. We do know that. I mean, we know that because of seasons, right? Axial tilt, precession. People have studied the stars, from the very beginning, which is probably, like I say, where all of those structures from Stonehenge on, throughout everywhere that point to like the solstice and things like that, that those things were all just, those were remnants of previous civilizations who guided people to build these things so that there could be some sort of clock, timing of things. But yeah, it's a clockwork universe, that's for sure. We don't have, random things, happen like a comet or a meteor here or there or something like that. But generally speaking, like I say, just look at the solstice, look at the seasons, right? Look at the grand cycles, right? So, the 12,000 year thing is, by all accounts, appears to be accurate, but not down to the day, month, or exact year. It's close to that time. So, to me, it's like, look at this year, for example. I complained about this in my garden. When I get into against these climate, alarmist people, right? Excuse me. Spring. Sorry. I can't talk. I still have some soft drink here. I thought I was going to have to go get some more. Hey, there's even a couple ice cubes left in there. Who knows? All right. I was talking about the climate alarmists. March 21st was the first day of spring. And early May, I had snow in my backyard. Okay. And I was very annoyed because I'm a gardener. All right. I spend a lot of time outdoors. My garden's doing really great right now. And those who are still believe in this global warming thing, I just read you I started the show with the weather, and it's going to be in the 40s, at least 3 nights in a row, in this coming weekend, which we're heading into, June, Tuesday's June 1st. Okay. So Memorial Day weekend, if you're one of those people that goes to the shore or resorts on Memorial Day weekend, man, you got screwed, because you could have gotten lower rates and went last weekend or the weekend prior where it was 80 degrees, because this weekend it's going to be freezing, raining. It's going to be raining in the 50s in the daytime, and at night it's going to be in the 40s. But case in point, the first day of spring was March 20th, 2021, right in that, time frame. And we had anything but spring didn't hit till May, really. So, the accuracy of certain things changes. It's not, you can't pinpoint it. You can't say, and there's people say, oh, well, this, it's like, no, I've got the NOAA radio right here. Okay. Let me get this thing.
City of Johnstown. Today, mostly sunny. A chance of showers and thunderstorms this afternoon.
I mean, in these things, what they'll do is they'll give you averages, and then they'll tell you about records. And I see a lot of these records, because people are, when it was hotter, and it will say it was hotter in like 1930 or 1912 or in 1886 or something like that. And, all these people trying to pretend as if suddenly things have gotten hotter and, and they're speeding up and this, and it's like, no, man. I finally heard somebody saying yesterday, and somebody promoting this, they were at least admitting they were using it to get into say that minorities and poor people in the cities were going to suffer more from climate change, global warming, than other people, because they lived in the inner cities and the cities tended to be hotter, which is something I've been saying all along. But they were trying to use it in some fashion it and warp it in some kind of way, right, to blame it on climate change, right? Not the fact that the city itself generates. I mean, they were self-admitting that the city itself is a hotter place than anywhere else. But they were using it by saying, oh, global warming is going to have a disproportionate effect on people living in inner cities. But the idea is that, no, you don't get it. It's the city itself that is having the effect on people living in inner cities. It's the idea that they, society failed people. The education system failed people, right? The politicians who never fixed these problems, ignored it, who only bring these issues up when it has to do with elections or to sidetrack us, that failed it. That was really, it was almost laughable when I heard that, because in effect, they were acknowledging what I've been saying all along. Yeah, cities are naturally hotter than big cities are naturally hotter than other places. Just like most readings are taken, like I say, at airports with big black tarmacs jet engines, spewing out heat. And that's where like most of the weather stations are. And they say, oh, the planet's heating up. Well, yeah, over the past 50 years, we've built a lot more airports and cities have gotten a lot bigger, right? A lot more buildings, a lot more skyscrapers, a lot more parking lots, a lot more, asphalt, right? And of course, you're going to get warm readings at airports and cities. And the more of these airports and urban sprawl you have, it's going to give an impression that, because that's where the weather stations are, that the planet would be hotter. But the reality is it has nothing to do with out, everywhere else. The planet, the Earth is like is this green place that's been cooling. And people just don't want to deal with that. That's a fact. That's not up for debate. But none of that really matters. Even that doesn't matter. But the point I was trying to make is that we can see that the seasons aren't, don't happen specifically on a day. So a solstice, it may be a solstice as they call it, right? But doesn't mean that day spring has sprung, right? It could be the first day of winter, or the first day of fall, whatever. But that doesn't mean that day is etched in stone, to give the Stonehenge example. It's an approximation. This thing can happen anytime, So it appears that it's going to happen by, sometime but within the next 25 years, I say. But there's no evidence to suggest that it can't happen, tomorrow or 5 years from now. And the idea that we're being sidetracked and people aren't allowed to know that is a crime against humanity. It's truly a crime against humanity. And just another example to show what narcissistic sociopaths / psychopaths, this organized crime syndicate that's running the world, literally, overseeing these various former countries that are now corporatocracies. How whacked out they are, and why this Save America campaign and this cult of personality and all these people who are just looking at this stuff they're loons. They're just trying to like make money, get power, seize power. I mean, what the hell? It's pathetic to think about it. This civilization it's almost like we don't deserve to survive. Well, we're not going to. That's that. We have to come to grips with that the survivors of this event and previous events are just random people. And what these people are trying to do, building their underground shelters and having these robotic things that DARPA's funding that are going to be able to like dig through the ice and find the openings to these shelters when the atmosphere is, livable, and then open up these things. That's total folly. Because first of all, there's going to be so much radiation, like from cosmic rays, like gamma rays and things like that, I don't even think it's going to be safe. It might not be safe to go outside for a year or more. And depending on what happens, if the longer you're stuck in that thing, the deeper the ice, shelf is going to be. At one point, I mean, let me just check that up. I'm sorry, my nose is itchy. Before I end this thing, I got some time. Just want to look up something. The window. Let's see if I can find this depth of ice over North America. See if anybody. Okay. At its maximum extent, let's see. All right. At its maximum extent, it spread as far south as latitude 37 degrees north and covered an area more than 13 million square kilometers, 5 million square miles. In some areas, its thickness reached 24 to 3,000 meters or 8 to 10,000 feet or more. How thick was the ice that covered North America? There's like another one. All right. The last glacial North America was covered by an ice sheet called Laurentide ice or something like that, approximately 2.5 miles thick. Okay. 2.5 miles thick. Think about that. 2.5 miles. So the longer these people who think these psychos think, that's like the whole idea with Elon Musk, because he's gotten into the climate thing now too. And he also wants to put a base on like, or a civilization or whatever, expeditions to Mars and like a little base there or something. Or not a base, people living there, whatever you call it. I can't think today. Well, like, what a waste and what a goofball. Right? What a goofball. First of all, Mars, any kind of structure that would be built on Mars, first of all, it would take them within 25 years. It would take that long to just get the basic, structures built where, people would be living on a base, and they would be primitive things that would be like, greenhouse and, piece together spaceships like our stupid space station. It's a bunch of like a David Bowie song, living in this tin can or floating in this tin can, right? It's laughable. Well, Mars is going to get hit, the same as us. So Mars would be obliterated, right? With cosmic rays. I mean, we're talking about, it's like in that comedy Mars Attacks movie, when somebody shoots a ray gun at somebody and they just like, disintegrate. That's basically what's going to happen if you're standing out in this. Instant disintegration. So why even go through that? And you're telling me nobody's told him about this? I mean, this is history of the earth. It's out there. It's not this. That's what I'm saying. This darn thing is not like up for questioning. It's blatantly obvious now. So 2.5 miles of ice. You're not going to get out of that. So I guess they could, preserve themselves and live underground. I mean, spending so many trillions of dollars, you've seen that thing they built like back in the 50s or something, 50s or 60s, that one outside of DC. where they showed how they had like, they had toilets and kitchens and conference rooms and all that stuff, whatever that resort was called. It's still there. I think now you could probably go and it's like a tour, right? You know what I'm talking about. I can't think of the name offhand, but if they had that technology back then to build that, it was under that hotel, and I just can't think of the name of it. But I think most people have seen it, right? It's not, that's like, it's been on the Discovery Channel or something like that. But if they had the technology to, where they had like water, purification, air filtration, they had everything set up to survive. They had a little mini Congress room, and stuff like that, and enough food and all this kind of stuff, so that they could survive it. It was to survive a nuclear blast, nuclear war. And I'm sure they had many of those things. And so this idea that this is nothing new, that the government's been involved in continuity of government, and that the wealthy, want to, have intentions of surviving any kind of cataclysm, whether it's man-made or or natural. But what I'm saying is that, the people who go into this thing are, they're going to be in there for a long time. And maybe they know that. But it may be a generational thing. They may be in there for decades. See, the ice isn't anywhere in North America, most of North America, put it that way, is going to be covered. The northern part of the United States, the former United States, is going to be buried in several miles of ice, anywhere from a mile to 2.5 miles of ice. It's hard to comprehend. But this has happened before, and it melted. It was the younger Dryas period when it all melted. So, we know this from the archaeological record. This isn't like, I'm not just talking, So, what are they going to do? There's, the city, remember the everything will be scoured over. Nothing will be left. Like I said yesterday, it's like, imagine taking a scouring pad, like a Brillo pad, if you know what that is. If you don't know what that is, one of these metal scouring pads where you would scrape something clean. Well, that's what is going to happen. There'll be no remnants of any kind of civilization, right? The temperatures will be so high. Some predictions are in the areas where when this thing happens, the temperatures are almost, and these guys, it's unbelievable, but the temperature will be almost above the degree that melts metal. Okay. I guess people always wonder, well, if there were civilizations in the past, why can't we find evidence of? Well, there's two reasons. One, it's scoured away. And two, over vast time periods of tens of thousands of years, everything degrades to, just disintegrates. That's just the way it is. You're not going to have plastic, people are like, well, the plastic bags, those things will last forever. No, they won't. They disintegrate. They used to have a show on, I think it was a History Channel, one of those, like, after man, and they would go, like, they would show like 10 years after man, 50 years, a century after, 1,000 years, 5,000 years after man, and they would just show overgrowth and stuff like that. And the only thing that really remains ultimately, once you start getting into thousands and thousands of years, the only things that remain are stone. Basically the natural, the planet, the stone itself. Rocks, and everything gets overgrown, and and that's that. People don't realize that. So I think I think it's a folly that government and these organized crime syndicate, corporatocracy folks and big tech, that they're even attempting to survive this and think they are so full of themselves, so narcissistic, that they think they will survive. But the bigger crime is the fact that they're not letting us know that they're planning to save themselves and that they're just going to let us all just die. And in the meantime, see, here's the thing about, why this civilization really pisses me off. Why Western civilization, and why the Save America movement, and it's just as bad as the people in charge right now, for sure, too. Why the whole political system, both sides, every side of that counterfeit coin, right, just pisses me off, and why I'm not political anymore, is that they don't care about anything. If we have 25 years at best to live, then we should be, A, they should let us know, and B, we should be able to, live out the rest of these lives in truly in the pursuit of happiness, instead of this torment that they're doing, pitting people against each other, petty issues, right? Social justice, this, pointing fingers at somebody here, doing this, blowing this out of proportion, right? I mean, it's just pathetic. I mean, even if this thing wasn't going to happen, it's pathetic the way what they're doing, right? And people have this idea, oh, well, in 2022 or 2024, we'll change, we'll save America, we'll change Congress. And I'm like, change what? Nothing's changed. Those of us who live decent lives, and I'm on this down, this down thing right now, but I'm not really down. Like I say, I hurt my leg. I just want to go get a beer and have a fun afternoon drinking. I'm still thinking I might, hobble up there and get myself a 12-pack. I'm thinking about it. But it's going to be a sunny day. I'm going to at the very least go out in the backyard and, sit in the lounge chair, get a little bit of sun. And I've got a lot of lettuce and stuff like that growing. So I'm going to have lunch from my garden. So, it's like we make our own happiness. We make our own, our own lives. It's like people have to stop looking to the government, looking to politicians, and looking to the media as if they're something special, right? This cult of personality, and being caught up in this, obsessiveness, like Twitter sphere, politics. Of all the things to have as pop culture, politics. It's ridiculous. It's meaningless. They don't do anything but mess with you. But when you divorce yourself from them, like I have, like I said, I don't even have ID anymore. When you live outside of that world, okay, then you're free. So my idea is that, and my advice to you is, do whatever you want to do, but is that live the best life you can and just turn off the TV. I got rid of my service. I don't watch the news. I don't waste my time on getting caught up on arguing with people over politics. I criticize the whole system, right? I'm trying to explain to you how the whole thing is just one big corporatocracy. And at the top, it's an organized crime syndicate. And they're a bunch of narcissistic sociopaths with a few psychopaths thrown in there. That's who's running things. So I'm just sharing that, my insight. Because you don't know what you don't know, and everything you know is wrong. And you wear those shirts, and let people look at it, and maybe you'll wake up a couple of people. But who cares, I guess, in the long run? People don't want... Look, if you don't want to be woken up, then don't. There's only so much you can do, You try to help people, but if they don't want help, what are you going to do? Forcibly help somebody? No, that's what the government tries to do. Force you into something. Oh, it's like, look, I don't care about catching the flu. All right. Well, we care. You're putting other people. I'm saying, I'm not putting anybody at risk. I'm hanging out in my house. Excuse me. Hanging out in my backyard. Don't worry about me. You worry about yourself. That's my attitude on that. Leave me alone. I don't need that. I don't need the government anymore. I never did, really. This country was founded with the idea of limited government. It was a collection, a ragtag collection of colonies that broke away from the king system that was trying to do what the governors of the states now are doing themselves and what the federal government is doing. And that is ruling over them and taxing them. Right? Dictatorial rule and high taxation. And being the do all, the everything to everybody. Instead of letting people just live their lives. And the idea was, in the initial thing, people don't know this because they don't teach it anymore. Government basically had like very little, federal government had very little purposes. One was to provide for the common defense, and to deal with like things between the states, interstate problems, right? So, to be the go-between so that, the country could run smoothly, right? To have certain commonalities, of government so that, rights, the Bill of Rights, freedom of speech, assembly, and, the various amendments in the Constitution. I mean, that's all the government, that's what this country was founded on. That's what the Revolutionary War was about. It was about the King of England screwing us over and trying to tax us and tell us how to live and what we had to do and blah, 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 blah. They don't even teach that in schools anymore. Now they're teaching everything's about like slavery or something. Get out of there. It was who established it? Who were the people who were involved in the slave trade? It was the British, the Dutch, right? What about the conquistadors and what they did? And, in South America, South and Central America and stuff like that. I don't know. You know, we had the Spanish American War to get rid of those loonies. All right. The fact of the matter is America turned out okay because it fought back all of the loons, all the narcissistic sociopaths and psychopaths. But slowly they crept back in, and now we're in a worse situation than we were under King George. You know? So, you know, the only thing you can do is that the country's gotten so big with 320 to 350 million people, however many there are, people, no one has a count of them really, is that it's so big that you could kind of just, you know, just stay in the, you know, just keep out of their way, you know. I don't break any rules. I don't break any laws. It's like, leave me alone. I'm just living my life, growing my, you know, my veggies in my backyard, listening to my music, right? You know, leave me be, live and let live. And if we're on the verge of a, you know, a potential catastrophic event that's going to end civilization as we know it, right? Horribly, then forget about all these issues. You know, if you're so caught up on your personal issues, or somebody calling you a name, or the fact that somebody was victimized here or there or somewhere else, man, just look out for yourself, you and your own, right? If people would just, you know, be good, right, then it wouldn't matter. There's always going to be lunatics. There, like I said, you could go back statistically. There's 19,000 homicides in the U.S. alone every year. So there are people that are going to be killers, murderers, right? There's an ungodly amount of robberies, rapes, and all that kind of stuff. You know, those are the sociopaths, the maniacs, the crazies, the nutbags. And just because you can tie, oh, well, that person was of a certain religion or a certain color or a certain, you know, walk of life, whatever the heck it is, or political, you know, affiliation. Well, of course, when you get 19,000 homicides a year, you're going to have like thousands of people from every political persuasion, color, walk of life, and religion getting killed. All right, because there's lunatics out there. They're criminals. They've been doing it forever. Just the way it is. That's how it is. Look around the world, man. Some parts of the world, they machete people. Other parts of the world, I mean, it's unbelievable. There's dictators. Over in China, they've got gulags selling people's organs and stuff. I mean, come on, wake up. Let's get with it. So anyway, my answer to this whole thing is that, you know, and it does, you get to the point now, because I'll probably, I don't know, I think I might be moving this to locals, you know, and shortening these things just to like little half-hour things where I just pop in and pop out, you know, here and there. Because, you know, let's face it, if you look at yesterday's video and today's video, and look, obviously I've got 100 some other videos. I mean, we passed the 100 consecutive shows, last week? So I think I've said it all, and you should pretty much have it figured out by now. So the conclusion is, just live a good life. be a good person. Be happy. Pursue happiness. And you'll find that you don't have to add things or spend money. You basically you need to subtract things and save money will improve your life. That's what I've found. I live at the poverty level now. It's intentional. And despite my illustrious career, right, which I constantly have talked about, and all these books I've written, and there's 50 beat poetry tracks and, great solar stuff, and having lived in all these cities and had these great jobs and all that stuff. Right now, I live below the poverty line. And you know what? I'm happy. Right? Because I've removed myself from the claws of the corporatocracy. I don't even have to legally file taxes anymore. Because if you're below the poverty line, I'm retired and I live below the poverty line. And I've got confirmation that I don't even have to file taxes. All right? So I'm out of, I don't care about them anymore. And so that's my attitude on this whole thing. So live well, live cheap. Don't deprive yourself of anything. Look, I've got technology to do this. There's some ridiculous mechanical device coming up my street. I have no idea. You hear that? And what the heck is that? Let's see if I can point the mic to it. I'll tell you, life is crazy. Well, anyway, so
Good morning.
Have a great morning, great life. Yeah, the end of the world is nigh, but guess what? Who cares? Live a good life. Be happy. Just detach yourself from those lunatics, these crazy maniacs. And yeah, so what? Living well is the best revenge. Don't get caught up in arguing, protesting, and all that stuff. Living well is the best revenge. Just live well. Stay out of their way. All right? Let them self-destruct themselves. If they want to, battle against each other, let them do it. Just stay out of the way. Cheers. Have a great day. It's hump day. I think I might hobble up there and get myself some beer. Cheers. Take care. Bye.